Welcome to podcast 46 of the Empowered Marriage. And are you living with a man-child? So what is a man-child? If you haven't heard this expression before, what a man-child is, it's an individual who hasn't matured. So we'll call him immature for their age. And sometimes men who were perhaps overly nurtured as children, and they had parents who protected them, who perhaps overly nurtured them to a point where they did not actually get to experience the consequences or the disappointment of perhaps events that have happened or consequences. And because this is how you learn, by making mistakes, would you not agree? And sometimes if you're overly nurtured with a really protective parent or parents, you don't get to experience that. So the idea is teaching a child to think that, he is always right, is never to blame, and doesn't need to handle tasks and responsibilities either at home or at school. What that does is it stunts that individual. It stunts his maturity and his growth as an individual growing into a man. You're not actually doing them any justice. And then these men marry or get into relationships. And it's difficult if you're on the receiving end. Parents take these protective measures to make sure, and I get this because I am a parent, that your child is happy and safe. But sometimes it goes a little bit too far. And, when they do, intentions are so good, I get that. But the results, they're not good for the child in the long run, growing into a man. And so today I'm going to talk about, what a man-child is. Because when men do not fully grow up, sometimes they can sort of farm out the hard work of adulthood to the closest to them, which often can be the woman on the receiving end. It can be subtle. But if you're listening to this and if you're making excuses for your partner, perhaps stop. Stop and reflect. Why? Why are you picking up after your grown man? He's got 2 arms and 2 legs. Is he not capable of being able to pick up after himself? And it can be anything from, the mundane of picking up his clothes and perhaps plates and cups and everything that's left around in your shared living space. But it can also go to a lot more serious things, which is what I can see sometimes. Picking up like unpaid debts. It can be picking up the tab, or it can go through to like picking out Christmas presents for his family, birthday gifts for his family. Why is he not capable of doing that? Where are you picking up after him? So I'm going to talk about the man-child behaviours. So one behaviour is he can have extremely poor awareness. What I mean by that is he may not get that he's actually got emotional baggage from his family and it's dysfunctional, but he's not owning that and he's not getting it. Could also be that perhaps he thinks that recreational drugs, particularly pot, I see a lot of that, it's fine to use that. And sometimes he just doesn't get the health implications. Perhaps it makes him lazy mentally and also physically around the house. It may influence him to be quite negative. It's also very difficult for you on the receiving end, particularly with a young family, of having that around. A man-child also, perhaps they're not really career orientated. Sometimes they can go from job to job. For some, they actually avoid working at all, which can create a lot of friction and put a lot of pressure on you as a couple. And the heartache that you're feeling because of this. Sometimes for some, a man-child, his huge hobby could be electronics. Look, it's great. However, playing video games for hours and hours and hours and perhaps not balancing it out with, say, exercise or supporting the running of the household and looking after the children, then you've got to really question, okay, what's going on here? And that takes me, this is a big one that comes in for women. I feel like he's not taking the load. I'm taking it all. The running of the household, the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry. And what I hear is when you actually ask him for help, he acts like it's a huge big deal and almost like childlike. So it's really difficult if you're on the receiving end of that. And when you are living with a man-child, he actually finds it really hard to express himself maturely. So if we call it manning up, not that I really like that expression, there's no manning up when it's necessary. And you may go back and forth with discussions around problem solving, but yes, you don't actually solve anything. You may find that he complains or he whines and he thinks everything is unfair. And perhaps he is a bit petty or he keeps score. And, you know, for some, he might have tantrums, literally. So, and do you find that you're the one, if you're living with a man-child, you're the one who always brings up the important discussions, the issues that need discussing? You're the one who's always bringing it up. And your partner perhaps pretends at times that nothing is wrong. And I suppose one last point around a man-child, often what happens is a lot of his friends behave exactly the same. They're quite similar. So you may get together socially and you look out and a lot of his mates may be similar to that. And if they're not, you may actually feel quite embarrassed when you go out. You feel embarrassed over your partner's behaviour or perhaps lack of maturity in that social setting. So there's a lot in this. This is a big discussion. But it's how do you deal with this? If you are living with a man-child, how do you deal with this? The first, I think, most important, I suppose, action step is for you to be independent. You know, when you do own your own behaviour, you actually provide this really excellent model for how your behaviour how your partner can behave. So it's staying in the adult. Very difficult if you are living with a man-child because you may get triggered, but it's modelling strong adult assertive behaviour. And hugely, don't be his mum. And when you're getting into that role, notice it. If you're becoming naggy and you're speaking at him, or you are actually enabling this behaviour for him to stay in that man-child behaviour. So start with you and notice when you're nagging, when you're criticising, when you're attacking. It's not a good way. Another point would be perhaps stop making excuses for him. This is not your burden. And it's also not your opportunity to rescue him. Perhaps that's what you have done in the past in relationships. It's being clear, it's being assertive, it's communicating what your needs are, but doing it in an adult fashion. And if your man-child recognises that he's got behaviours as a man-child, it's giving him the space and the time to begin changing that. And it's going to take time. He's going to need room to be able to do that. And attacking him, belittling him, that isn't going to support him in those steps. You know, behaviour is hard to change. So it's giving him the space and time to do that. Something perhaps to ask yourself is, be real. Why are you with this guy? Being honest with yourself, and if you're in the early stages of this relationship, taking your time before you absolutely fully commit to it is really, really important. And not rush it. Do the dating stage. Really take that time with this. And so also let go of the need to control. You know what? It's totally up to your partner to make the decision to grow up. And your decision to let go the need to control and to stop perhaps trying to rescue him. It's knowing what's going on inside of you and working with what is in your control. Because I see, let's say on average, 1 or 2 couples, and this is new couples coming in a week, where I see this playing out. So as a couple, you may have a couple of kids, but the woman goes, I just feel like it's my 3rd kid. You know, I've got 2 kids, I've really got 3. So it's first of all being able to be very aware that that is what you are living and what you can do to change that. So if you're a man and you are listening to this, I hope that this recording, you haven't felt attacked. That is not my intention at all. It's, if you are a man-child, and you may go, actually, yeah, I am a man-child and I like it and I love it and I want to stay like that. That's absolutely fine. I mean, it's what is right for you. However, I am speaking into the couples that it's particularly difficult for a woman who is living with a man-child. And so women, it is, are you enabling this behaviour? And so it's noticing if you are going into that mum role. That would be, I believe, one of the most important points to really work on. And sometimes we live in hope and we live in, we live with the potential of who we want our partner to become. And when they don't get to that, it creates a lot of pain for you. So a question to ask yourself, am I living in the potential of who I know this man can become? And so it's being able to let go of all of that. And in saying that, research does say that men sometimes do mature. They mature a bit later than than women. So it's giving your man the chance. What I would encourage you to do, though, is focus on the really good things in your relationship. I bet he knows how to have fun. He loves adventure. He can be childlike in a fun sort of way. And you really, really love that. So it's really, you would have heard that expression, what you focus on grows. So if you focus on the negative things, that is going to grow. So focus on the things that are great. And I bet your partner's fantastic with the kids. They know how to bring out their fun side. And I do see those men who recognise, yeah, I am a man-child, and they slowly chunk away and start working on the different parts of themselves and actually growing up. Because, if they haven't had the opportunity to practice consequences and learn from their mistakes, they're in a really new place. So you might be in a place do I give my partner that space and time? So by the time people are coming in to see me and the woman's sitting in front of me and she says, I just want him to grow up. I'm tired of being a mother and I'm tired of nagging. It depends how far along you are. How much in crisis are you in your relationship? And so I call it the burrow hole or the rabbit hole. It depends how far down you are in that. If you're both at a point where you're not listening to each other and you're attacking each other enormously and you're criticizing, that's not a good place to be. However, you can stop that. It is a decision. It is a choice. And it's making that decision in yourself to actually not behave like that. So, okay, if you are living with a man-child, I've given you different ideas, and have a conversation. Have a conversation with your partner. And if you are a man-child and you're listening to this, I want you to get how difficult it is for women on the receiving end of this. They've perhaps committed to a future with you. You may have a couple of children, yet she is feeling unsupported. She's feeling unvalidated. She's feeling alone. She's feeling like she's the only adult in this relationship. And it's really, really difficult. And she's had enough. And so it's a decision. It is a decision to do work around this. And also, if you are a man-child, sometimes you can find it really difficult to say no. And you can find it really difficult to stand up for yourself, and you may not take things seriously. So it's working out what you want to work on. Start with something little. It could be as simple as I'm going to share some of my feelings with my partner. And because you may not have done that before, because no one can tell you what you need to do or what you need to work on. You actually know yourself better than anybody. So it's first of all recognizing what it is that I want to change. If I am a man-child, what am I going to do differently? Begin with one thing. Begin with one area and then start working up from that. Because if you take on too much, so say for example, you're a big, you play video games a lot in the evening, and that's a time when your partner is putting the kids to bed, doing homework, perhaps doing bedtime stories, and you're playing video games. Okay, perhaps you may decide, all right, I am going to cut that back. I'm going to support my partner with the bedtime ritual. I want to get involved and have a conversation with her about how you would like to begin doing that. Because only you know if it's over the top. I encourage couples to get together in the evening and talk. And I know a while back I had a bloke, I play video games then. All right, well, he needs to really work out what he wants, if he actually wants this relationship and to put the energy and time in. Or, actually, my video games are more important. They're not the priority. The family thing isn't my priority. So look, there's no wrong or right with any of this. I'm just bringing this to your attention and talking into living with a man-child, because if you're on the receiving end, it is not easy. So if any of this has spoken to you, I actually do counselling, I do coaching, I do psychotherapy, I work with couples, I work with individuals. You'll find all of my details on powerofchange.com.au, and I work with people online and also in my room. So just do what works for you. And the biggest thing is don't stay stuck. That's all I would say, because it's not going to go away. So on that note, have a fantastic day, and I will see you on the next recording and on the next podcast.